I'm Kahja Elliott, and I'm a food enthusiast. Bronx born and raised, ATL made, Bay Area becoming. And I talk to people about how they create community through food in the Bay and beyond. Welcome to the As Told By podcast. Welcome to this week's episode of the As Told By podcast. Okay, so this is going to be like one of my favorite episodes because I'm talking to the founders, the owners of one of my favorite companies here in Oakland. Their company mission is to create exceptional spices and seasonings that inspire people to enjoy cooking, become better cooks, and appreciate good food. Founded in 2011, they're sourcing spices from around the world, helping restaurants and home cooks alike to create the freshest, boldest, and most resonant flavors. Welcome Erica Perez and John Beaver of Oaktown Spice Shop to the As Told By podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. We're so honored to be here.
I'm so honored to be here. We're here at your production facility, and we just came off of, a nice little walking tour of the space, and I had so many questions popping up that I was like, okay, wait, hold it for the episode. First of all, 2011, it's now 2025, and you shared with me you have grown out of doing the fulfillment in stores to now you have this whole facility that takes into account all the things that we experience as just, customer walking into the store. The growth. How's that been?
It's been good. It's been gradual. I think, well, like I was telling you earlier, we used to do all the production, all the grinding and blending and packaging in the shop. And it was challenging. We have 200, 250 ingredients probably that we had to store and have on hand, and getting in big bags of whole peppercorns and whole cinnamon and things like that. Just like it was a game of Tetris always to receive the orders and put them away. We had a standard size door, so the pallets would be delivered out front on the sidewalk, and we would carry them in one by one. So I'm happy to have a roll-up door, and then we could roll the pallets right in to the warehouse and production facility.
Life is getting easier as far as fulfillment.
Yeah, my back doesn't hurt anymore.
Oh, good. You like throwing, bundles, spice bundles over your shoulder. Wow. Well, first of all, thank y'all for being here today. So I have grown to make this a signature question on the podcast. So I'll start here with you all. And I'll ask you separately, and I'll start with you, Erica. What kind of food family do you come from?
Oh, that's a good question. I come from an eat a lot of food and enjoy it a lot family. I think my best memories involve food. And I don't know if that's because I love food so much or because we just have that special relationship with food in my family. But when I think about moments with my dad, who's no longer with us, I think about us at the Thanksgiving table and raising a glass of champagne to toast each other, and the meals that we had on vacations, the meal traditions that we had growing up. Both my parents are Mexican American, so we have some, strong tamalada traditions where we make the tamales at Christmas with my grandmothers and my mother and all of my aunts, and it's a really strong part of I think my identity is food. Mm-hmm. So we all appreciate it very much.
I love that. My identity is food. Mine too. We have that in common. What about you, John?
I come from a family that likes to eat. My family weren't big restaurant goers, but we did enjoy a lot of meals together. It was always really important for my parents to have dinner with the family, and we had a lot of people come over for dinner. Like you'd see the neighbor outside, like parking his car or something like that, and like yell through the window to invite him over for dinner. Or I don't know, we just always had people over. My friends in high school would come over a lot for dinner, and or we'd have like out of town guests, and a lot of fun times around the table, enjoying food and coffee and dessert.
Okay, so families where people were in kitchens cooking.
Definitely.
Big time.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom's signature chip beef on toast. Are you familiar with that one?
I've seen that dish and have never had it, but it has like the white gravy on top of it. Yes.
Yeah, it was something from another era, from from an army base or something like that. I think. No, she's a good cook. But that maybe wouldn't have been maybe her signature.
That's okay. Chipped beef. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've seen that, but I've heard great things. Erica, I read that you come from a journalism background and John, an education background for you. But even at the onset of this, if I take a look back, and I took a look back in, to how you all got into this, you, John, have been working with spices in your past as a teen in the Midwest. Where in the Midwest are you from?
I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And working with spices like just, after school job?
Spice work, like typical high school job that people get, right? I was running errands with my mom, and we went into a spice shop as one of her errands that she, frequented the spice shop, and I sort of got offered a job on the spot while I was there with my mom. Like, oh, would you like to come back next week and work? I was like, sure, yes, I would. Yeah.
I would like a check, yeah.
And I think I was about 17 at the time, and I don't know how it is. I think it is the same for a lot of people, but the stuff that you learn when you're 17, 18, 19, 20 kind of stays with you for the rest of your life. You don't forget those things, so fast forward to like moving to Oakland in 2009 as a 30-something-year-old, I still had all that stuff locked in there. Like I knew how to grind and blend spices, and so that, I guess it's those things you learn early on make a difference.
So now you're from Milwaukee, but Erica, you are not. So what I didn't say when I introed them is that they are a married couple. So how did you find your way to Milwaukee, and when did you all decide we're coming to Oakland to do spices?
Well, I grew up in Los Angeles, and I did go to college in the Bay Area, and then I went back to LA, and I was working in journalism. I was working at a newspaper in Orange County, California, and I got an opportunity to interview for a job at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel newspaper in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which was a really well-regarded newspaper, and as career-wise, it seemed like it could be a really good step for me. And I think in journalism, at least back then, because it has changed a lot, especially in newspapers, you had to be open to moving around. You couldn't necessarily stay in one place. At the time, my dream job would have been to work at the LA Times, but it seemed like a tough move to go from the paper I was at to that one. So I thought, if I can move and make a name for myself at this place that's supposed to have really great editors and is winning Pulitzer Prizes, then I can make my way back to my dream job. So I moved to Milwaukee, and I think I was in my mid to late 20s. I just arrived in Milwaukee in January in the middle of a snowstorm. My Prius didn't turn on, and parked in the parking lot of my new apartment, and I had all my sweaters in the back seat, and somebody broke into my car and stole all of my sweaters.
Oh no!
And I was like, here I am, world. But it was. I actually had a great time living and working in Milwaukee. It's a smaller city. I had never really lived in a city like that where I could afford to live close to my work, and during the summers I could bike to work. Growing up in LA, it was constant commuting, and I had never really had that much of my life to myself. I was amazed. And I met lots of nice people, including John here. And we started dating, but the winters were tough on me, and I knew that I couldn't see myself living there long term because of that, and mainly because of the length of the winters. It was, maybe October, November it starts, and it's maybe a little exciting at that point, but then come February, I'm good on this. I would call my parents. They would be barbecuing in the backyard in LA, and I would just cry.
Oh man.
Yeah, I missed the sunshine and the ocean, and so I started looking for my way back, and back to California. And so I got a job offer in Berkeley at the Center for Investigative Reporting. And John and I had been dating for about a year, and I said, "Do you want to move to California with me?" And he said yes.
He said yes.
He said yes.
I said yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it wasn't the spices that brought us out here. It was my journalism job and
The winter, running from the winter.
Journalism
running from the
and winter running.
and the call of California.
Yes. So then, John, what made you say in that, I think that this is also a market where I can bring what I kind of know and have been doing around spices here, and I really think that this would take in this environment?
Yeah, well, I was really surprised when I moved here and I couldn't find a local spice shop in Oakland. I Googled it, and I came up with a movie that was set in Oakland and filmed in Oakland about a spice shop. And I thought to myself, well, this could be a good opportunity because people obviously love food and cooking, and there's just a diversity in cuisines that are represented in the Bay. And I thought, what a great opportunity. And I mentioned something to Erica. I was unemployed at the time too, and I said, what do you think about a spice shop? And she said, yeah, let's do it. So I worked some different jobs in restaurants around, and I worked on a business plan for a couple of years. And I'd never run a business. I didn't know anything about running a business. I knew about grinding and blending spices. I knew how to talk to customers about spices. But I did not know about what kind of business liability insurance you need, or what triple net means, or I don't know, all the things that you find out, or you know about as a business owner, all the tax things,
payroll
bookkeeping,
taxes,
payroll
HR handbooks,
Yes.
employee manuals, all the things.
Yeah, so we're self-educated.
Yeah. The way of the entrepreneur. Through this podcast, I feel like I learned so much about people's entrepreneurial journeys, and many times it is what you said. I know the subject matter, I don't know the business.
Right.
And then you just have to know one and figure out how to build the other. Yeah. Well, you did, because we're sitting here in this production facility, and as we were walking around earlier, you talked to me a little bit about going from doing all of the fulfillment in stores. Talk about the transition from taking kind of like a hand-to-hand process in a retail space to scaling to now a production facility, because there's all kind of processes and equipment and storage and all these things that have to, be taken into account. So how did you know, okay, this is the right time to scale? And then, because you didn't have entrepreneurial or business experience, how did you go about the process of scaling?
Well, very slowly. In the beginning, it was just me, and Erica still had her full-time job, and she would come in nights and weekends. And in the beginning, it was like we would open at noon, and I would spend the morning doing grinding and blending in the back, and then try to get things packaged during the day, whatever we could. My mom would come out, and she would stay for a couple of weeks. She would help in the shop. Your parents would come. We'd have a lot of friends and family help out. And then we, got to a point where we hired an employee who actually had a spice experience, luckily. So that was, we were really fortunate to have somebody who already knew about spices, because we didn't even know we never had employees or how to even handle that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. What year did you get your first employee?
2012.
Okay.
Yeah. We decided to get married that year too, so we're like, oh, well, we should probably have somebody who can run their shop so we can get married.
You would need that.
I remember we went camping for one night, and we had somebody that lived in the neighborhood that watched the shop for us for a half a day.
You made it work.
Yeah,
you got it in.
Made it work. But I think for us it was for me anyway. I think I work in sort of the physical world, and I'm not great about planning on paper. So I was if it's in my space, I can handle it. I can figure it out. So grinding and blending and having shelving, products on the shelf and organizing things that are all in my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So after a number of years of doing that and having, the blending in the back, and we also used to do things in bulk too, right? So we had all the bulk jars out in the shop.
Yeah.
So you could come in and you could get like an ounce of something or whatever. Or you could come in and people would be like, oh, I have this curry powder from a vacation that I really love, and I'm almost out of it. So could you recreate it? And I'm like, yeah, we can try.
Y'all was doing custom.
We were doing custom blends, and we would do is like a half cup volume for them, and we'd charge them like $6 for it.
Way back in the day.
Way back in the day. It's like it was fun. It was great. Not a great business model.
Not scalable.
Not scalable. So it got to a point where I was describing like how when we would get a pallet delivery of spices or jars or whatever to the front door of the spice shop, on Grand Avenue, they would park the semi truck in the middle of the street, and they would,
because there's no parking.
There's no parking, and they would wheel, if we were lucky, because sometimes they would leave the pallet on the street.
Oh.
And we would have to unload it while it was on the street. Or if they came and they didn't have a lift gate, we would unload it from the back of the truck, like piece by piece. The first delivery we got was probably 1,000 pounds, and it was like I took it out piece by piece. 110-pound sacks of ginger and things like that.
The old-fashioned.
So it was just very cumbersome and time-consuming, and it was really hard to buffer ourselves with inventory, to have the ingredients you needed when you needed them, because you could only hold so much. So every week I was, doing a quick inventory, which, we didn't have any software or anything like that. So it was just, going around looking at a box. It's like, oh, that's about a half full box.
You had a notebook?
And a little clipboard
Okay.
with a list of stuff on it. And I'd be like, it's a 44-pound box. It's half full, so there's about 22 pounds in there. And, that's what I would do. And I'd spent a lot of time doing that. And so we got to 2020, and we started looking for some production spaces. Mm-hmm. And then the pandemic hit, and most people remember that you couldn't go anywhere, so that included like touring spaces. So like the real estate agents are like, oh, we can't show you anything.
Yeah, not right now.
So took a break from it, but then it became very relevant during the pandemic because everything went on to mail order. All of our shop sales switched to online sales,
and everybody was cooking.
So we were having a really hard time keeping up with orders. We didn't have the space set up for it, so we closed the retail spaces, and we just put stainless steel worktops everywhere in front of the shop and metro racks, and it became a production space essentially.
Wow.
So then we eventually did find this space, mm-hmm. and just sort of in the nick of time. I think we were already doing like second shift production runs in the Albany shop. And which was challenging. Sorry, residential neighbors, if you're listening.
They're like, what is that noise?
Can you do something about the door slamming? I was like,
sorry.
Sure, sorry. People are, we live next door, and my husband works at
literally behind.
Yeah. They're like, there was like a baby living there. I don't know. It was like, sorry about that. We tried. We worked hard.
Did you give him some spices?
I probably. I just dealt with them, I think, via email. So,
yeah.
But I did
placate you with cinnamon.
Yes, exactly. Yes. That's always the way. Just spice, just smooth things over with some paprika or something. A little cumin.
Yeah, that would placate me. Yes, very well, very good.
I should just carry some with me just in case I get
you get out of parking tickets, all kind of things.
Road rage or whatever. Here's some cumin.
Yeah, Paloma sugar. Be nice.
Yes. So when we found the space, it just was sort of overdue at the time. That we have a place where we could do the production centrally. Because at that point we had 2 locations, and we were doing grinding, blending, and packaging in both locations. So it's sort of duplicative inventories, and then there would be a lot of shuttling things back and forth. Oh, we're out of, half cup jars. All right, well, I can load up my car and bring some half cup jars over.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of transfer orders, and do you remember all that stuff? We had like transfer order logs, and so we'd sort of set into place a lot of systems for moving things around.
Yes.
And when we moved into the warehouse, we still didn't have a software for it. Now we have this great thing where I can just look up on my computer. I
Come
can
on,
see,
inventory management.
yeah, how much of any one ingredient or thing we have in the house. So
Centralize this thing.
Centralize it.
There's a lot back there to centralize because you all carry, such a large variety. And one of the things I appreciate when I come to the stores is it's almost like a world tour walking through there, because you are getting a little bit of everything. So, Erica, can you speak to what the sourcing of this is like? Like, I know of some other spice companies, and I'm in Zanzibar and I'm here, and like they're out traveling the world to, kind of gather and build these relationships. Where are you building the relationships to get all these spices, and what is your sourcing process like?
Well, that's probably more of a John question, actually. Sorry. I could have answered the other one, but
that's okay.
Yeah.
Y'all can tag team it.
You go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wish we could go out and travel and visit the places. But when we opened the business, we were there all the time. So there was no opportunity to like leave for a week or 5 days or 2 weeks to go to a far off place to, meet the farmers where they're growing cloves or cinnamon or cumin. So we've always relied a lot on importers and building relationships with them. Asking them if they can source certain hard to find things, or just finding somebody that has it somewhere. That's, I think, been the challenge in getting consistent inventory from places. There's been different things now. I mean, now is tariffs, right? That's the thing that everybody's talking about, and that's a real thing. A few years ago, it was the ports were overwhelmed because Americans were buying too much stuff, and there was a slowdown in the ports. Freight got very expensive suddenly. I don't know, you heard, people probably familiar with like how containers were like used to cost X amount of dollars, and they like quadrupled it in cost to ship something.
It makes it difficult to I don't know, I guess maybe plan, especially when you mention tariffs, right? And just this socio-political climate we're in altogether. Tariffs, people are holding on to their money, things are changing in the job market. I mean, this is not the cheapest place to go buy spices, but it is very vast, right? So these are all things that you have to take into consideration. Changing consumer behaviors, things changing in the political landscape, availability to get things from, a global market. But it sounds like, I don't know, like, is it ever in you all's plan to, go traipsing around the world somewhere to, see the best place to source,
Spice,
cardamom?
Some spice tourism. I think, it's always on our agenda. As far as, we're still a very small operation. So, we're
Really?
in the grand scheme of things, if you think about importing things, if we're importing, you'd want to import you want to fill a container to make it sort of worthwhile, right?
Okay.
And we can fill some pallets.
That's because we could fill a container of everything all together, but each individual thing we actually don't sell enough of to fill the container.
A container. Okay.
And we're sourcing from, every continent and dozens of countries. So you could get like a container from Egypt or something like that, or from Morocco or something like that. You might be able to fill it, but what, like Erica said, it's like this sort of the total of everything we have in the warehouse would definitely fill some containers, but the individual components wouldn't.
Wouldn't.
Yeah.
I guess sometimes I don't think of this I don't think small business when I think of this, because you all have come to take up some inventory. So you originally started on Grand, but you moved to a larger space on Grand Avenue in Oakland, which is like, right in the heart of the city there by the lake. You had previously an outpost in Castro Valley at the marketplace, which I had been to that one. You have what is probably my favorite location, which is in Albany. Is that Solano Avenue?
Solano Avenue.
Solano Avenue, which is just a huge space, right, where you really can like be walking and perusing and interacting with everything leisurely. And then San Francisco. You've got that too. And now you all have an outpost in LA. Yeah. So you're controlling a lot. There's a lot being controlled from this space we're sitting in. I feel like I'm in, ground control.
Well, it's funny because, I think that we are not a small business by some definitions. And we've been around for a long time, and we've grown. But at the same token, we're we don't have any investors or anything like that. So everything that we do, we have to make sure we have, we're just sort of making it work every year with the revenues and income and things like that. And so it still feels a little precarious all the time. I think that, but I think that, reading about other small business owners' perspectives, that we're all in the same boat, where you're kind of, it can look too big to fail, but it sometimes doesn't feel that way. It's just, it can be very challenging month to month and year to year with so many things changing. But I feel really fortunate that we've been able to keep going. And, something happens like the pandemic, you think, okay, well, I guess this is it. This is the end. And then we figured it out, and it was not without pain or difficulty, but, you kind of just work through it, just like you tried to make your business plan from scratch, at the beginning. You kind of just try to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And I think also one of the good things about that, just thinking like the evolution and all the pivoting businesses had to do from like, the lessons of the pandemic. And then you think about now, Oakland had recently been designated like #1 food city in the country. So, the restaurant scene here, and not just in Oakland, but just in the Bay in general, is doing well from the perspective of it's well regarded, right? And the people have to cook, which means they need spices. Mm-hmm. So this is not just the, hand-to-hand customer like, myself, even though, listen, I think I'm up to 50 jars. I probably stand with some of these chefs in their collections. But then it's also those bulk relationships with restaurants who, are part of this community, but are also utilizing what you do to help bring their businesses to life.
Yeah. And the businesses, that was something when we started the shop that we didn't really, we thought mainly of just being a brick and mortar retail shop where customers could come in and get something to make dinner with. And then restaurants started coming in and chefs, and we were like, okay, yeah, we can do that. We can. And we ended up, it just happened very gradually, and we got on some menus, and it's been really wonderful to work with the restaurant community in Oakland and in the Bay. And it's really heartbreaking when you see, all the restaurants that are also closing and, struggling. And so, it's been an interesting kind of arc, ups and downs for Oakland in particular, and the Bay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, y'all have a great customer base, and I think something like that is like the mainstay of what your business is. I'm curious though, what is the process in you all's mind of having moved people from, the little metal tins in your local supermarket to coming in here and having like far more of a boutique experience, which means you're going to need to pay a little bit more, right? But you have access to more, right? Mm-hmm. But what is kind of the process in your mind when you think about, customer evolution and customer development of moving people from that little metal container in the store to something like what you all are offering at your shops?
Well, I think when we first were thinking about the business, we thought a lot about the experience part of it. When you come into the shop, when you want to, maybe you're looking for, you have a recipe in your hand and it calls for an ingredient that you haven't heard of before and you're not even maybe sure how to pronounce. And so you come in and you ask, do you have this? and the person there says, oh, yes, we do, or maybe, oh, no, we don't, but we'll put it on our list of things to get. And then you can ask, how do I use it? Oh, and you might talk about how you've used it in the past, what you're learning about it, and you end up talking about your family traditions of cooking. What other things do you like to cook? If you like that, you might like this. And yes, it's a sales process, but it's also just a really nice conversation that's a little bit not something you get at the grocery store, certainly, but not, it's a little bit more of a social experience and a community feeling. And we also knew that when you grind cinnamon fresh, it is worlds better than what's been sitting on the shelf for years, in a jar.
I'm going to ask you about that later. I'm putting a bookmark in my mind to come back to that. But yes, go ahead.
And I think, and John introduced this to me because I had never been to a spice shop before moving to Milwaukee myself. So, it's like this eye-opening experience, and you can, back in the day, we would open up the jar and say, smell. And we still do that, but it's a smell jar now. But, you can just watch people's eyes like get wide and like, oh my goodness. And is there sugar in that? Because it actually tastes sweet, not like, the cinnamon that I get at the store. And on the price issue, when we actually looked at the prices at your local grocery store, at least, we were not that far off from that. Now, if you want to go and buy a 1 pound container of cinnamon at Costco, that's going to be tough for us to beat. Mm-hmm. But, as far as the little jars that you're talking about in the spice rack, we were not that far off from those prices. So we felt like we had a lot to offer in the experience.
Mm. And the experience goes a long way. I mean, that's something just for me, when I think about my own customer behaviors, that'll make the difference. I'm willing to pay a little bit more for some of the things you said. There's recipe cards. The staff is always super knowledgeable, right? But I know that if I get a cookbook or if I see a recipe, I watch a lot of PBS. I like Milk Street, Christopher Kimball, Milk Street. And, he's recreating recipes that he's experienced traveling abroad. So there's going to be, a need for a spice profile. And a lot of that stuff is not in the store. And so I have had that experience of, I need 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground cardamom. I'm like, well, you're about to buy a jar today. But at least you have it. At least it's there for me to get. And I know I could kind of take a photo of a recipe in a cookbook, come in and just do a sweep and walk out with everything that I need, which I love. Yes. Makes my life easy.
Thanks for coming by.
Yes. So I have, as we were walking through, I was like, I have questions. I saw like your whole grinding operation back there. And one of the things, just like in my research of spice grinding, was that if you grind spices too much, you can erode the integrity. I think about that, like even with regards to coffee, like I like a fine grind when I grind my own beans. But I would have thought it was just the opposite. Like if you grind a spice very, very fine, you almost extract or open up more of the essence, but not true.
Yeah, each spice is going to have its own sort of challenges or its own qualities, right? So if you think about what a spice is, it could be a seed, or it could be a piece of bark, or it could be an herb, or root. And to get something into a fine grain, you have to use some sort of mill, right? And let's say it's something like a peppercorn. Peppercorn's pretty easy to get fine because it's just like this, doesn't have a lot of fiber to it or anything like that. So it crushes up really nicely in powders too easily. And most people like sort of a coarse grained pepper. So it's like, it's the challenge is to keep it from getting too fine. You think about something like cumin, it's a little seed, but it's like got little fibers in it. So it's kind of chewy. Have you ever have taken like a whole cumin seed and chewed it?
I have not.
Well, we'll do that later. But you'd see that it's like kind of chewy and it's kind of hard, like a fennel seed or something like that. Okay. Very similar.
Yes.
So the challenge there is to break up those fibers. And when you're grinding something like that, the more you grind it, the harder you grind it, the more heat you're creating, right? The more friction you're creating. Heat is going to volatilize the flavors in the oils, so it's going to cause them to sort of like burn off or evaporate, or so that when you overprocess something, you're actually like you're compromising the flavor. I'm trying to think of like an example of like a parallel example of something that's not a spice that would illustrate that. But you said coffee, like you're trying to get it really fine. Like might just like cook it a little bit or something like that, right? And change the flavor of it, and the oils that are present would sort of evaporate,
dissipate,
and then you get also like oxidation too. So like the oxygen in the air is going to degrade things, right? So certain things are very hardy, like you were witness to the cloves that were in the grinding room, and you could smell that, right?
Yes.
Something like cloves, that flavor is very hardy and will withstand a lot of heat and oxygen and time and things like that. So you could have a jar of ground cloves from like 10 years ago and you open it up and you know that it's still ground cloves.
Popping.
Yeah. But if it were like ground cardamom or ground ginger or something like that, those things, you have a 10-year-old jar of ground cardamom, open it up and really have a hard time figuring out what it is, because like it's just a powder at that point, and there's none of the flavors present. So yes, it always depends on what it is. Like pepper, the reason people use pepper mills is because that heat will persist. And it's very, very hardy, but the actual nuance, all the flavor that you smell when you freshly grind pepper, that breaks down and dissipates rather quickly. So you'd be left with just like sort of just a raw, hot tasting thing, but no flavor.
Wow. It's for immediate release.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
You have it's your background, but you have such an in-depth knowledge. Like when people get hired to work in the stores, well, let me take a step back. What is the profile for people who get hired to be working with customers in the stores? Like, what do they have to know? What knowledge base? Is there like a Spice Shop curriculum they have to go through in order to work here? Like, how do you bring people from 0 to 100?
Previous Spice experience preferred. No. I mean, one thing, I think, number one thing is just a love of cooking and a love of food, a love of eating, of flavors. And then the other is like wanting to talk about it. Working in the shops, you're just you're having food conversations. Erica alluded to it earlier, just like you're having conversations all day long about recipes or cuisines, certain ingredients, just a lot of back and forth. And, I think just an openness to it, and the openness to, not knowing everything. And, we've all learned so much from our customers that come in and, asked about a certain thing that we've never heard of, and, I'll go look for it and find it, and, it could become your bestseller. I mean, I think of like Aleppo chili, like somebody asking about that, like very early on. And, now everybody knows, it's like a household name, right? Aleppo chili, right? So, yeah, it's just and retail experience also helps. I think it's just like a track record working with customers is always good.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we knew that we wouldn't get a lot of applicants if we had a requirement of spice knowledge or spice experience, because it's it's a little obscure and you don't learn it just off in school, or even if you work at a restaurant, you don't necessarily learn about spices. So you'd have to be really particularly interested to come to us with that experience. So we focus more on, people who have a strong interest in food. They don't even have to be people that, are great cooks or something like that. But are you interested in food? Are you interested in people? Are you open to learning? Do you, are you open to spending some time educating yourself about the product and being patient with yourself too about that? And we did find at a certain point that we would have a lot of applicants from working in restaurants, and, they love food and they love being around food and food people, but the schedule is really hard on them, the on-call nature, and sort of the constant movement and adrenaline. Some people might tire of that. And so we're a more slower pace and reliable schedule. It's a shop that has an open time and a close time, and it gets busy on the weekends and at the holidays, but it's a little bit more, it's much less adrenaline.
Yeah, you can,
Smoother pace.
take a breath.
Yeah, slower pace.
Yeah.
So yeah, we it's funny because when we first opened, and the first people started to talk about second location or something like that, and I was just like, we could never have a second location because we only have one John. Like this is the shop. How do we do this again? I don't know. But over time, we did do the work of developing training manuals. It's like, okay, what are all the things to know about pepper? What is the difference between the 3 cinnamons? Let's write it down. And then let's train everybody. We'll do a smell test. We'll make little packets of spices for our new employees to take home. All of these things have evolved over the years to the point that we do have quite a thick manual on all the different blends and all the different spices. And everybody, people can learn it, and if you're interested, it'll stick.
Yeah. And people are interested, and people are, we're in, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like we're in this societal moment where people are having to make career pivots, right? Either they're having to or they're choosing to make career pivots. And both of you all have done that, right? Pivoting into this as a full-time business. What would you say to somebody who's, loved food, or is at least interested, has lost a job, and now they're like, I have to go find something else to do, just based on your experience of having done that?
Yeah, I think I would say, if they were interested in a food business, to really think about what is the special and unique thing that you can offer. And if they needed help, we literally went to the library and got business plans for dummies. So that's,
Small business for dummies,
yeah, small business
the
for
No-Low
dummies.
Press
Yeah.
books. And,
so just, give it a shot. Like, it'll ask you all the questions that you need to answer, down the line of like, what are you going to sell? How much are you going to sell it for? What is unique? What's your unique offering? How will you distinguish yourself from your competitors? And when you start to go through all those questions, then you come up with something, and it may not be all that good, but at least you have a start. And then you can start talking to people. And when we were starting, we talked to friends in food, but we also reached out to the SBA has this group of retired executives, and they will meet with you for free to go over a business plan. And
oh, nice.
The person who met with us had owned a chain of, it wasn't Jiffy Lubes, but it was like Jiffy Lubes. And he actually had really great advice. And, he had no concept of the subject matter, but he was looking at the business plan, and he could say, this is a good idea. This is on the right track. You need to go back to the drawing board on this, So just, I would say, putting together all your passion and all your ideas, and then filtering it through this business plan process helps kind of, and then talking to people who might be experts in the field, or other business owners who might be able to help you refine the idea and see if you can test it out.
And being open to starting before you maybe have a complete understanding of what you're getting into. And John, you talked about that earlier. And even doing the podcast, right? This is my first podcast. I don't, I've said many times on this podcast, I don't come from a media background, but you learn and you evolve, and it's 3 years later. And now, you saw me roll in here with my little case of things and, can set this up in 10 minutes.
I was very impressed at how you could set it up and have a conversation. You were setting everything up. So
that's because I've been doing it now, right? I've put in not quite 10,000 hours, but like this used to be done in an actual studio, and similar to what you said, that became a constraint because everyone's not going to come down or can't come down to where the studio is. And, now being fortunate to go traveling to do some of these interviews, this was my idea of scaling, or this was my version of scaling for this. So I love that y'all have kind of put out there what you just explained, but also what you explained about, if you don't have all the answers, just start with what you know. If you're passionate about what you're doing, people will come along to kind of help you in the evolution of what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I think just ask for advice from people. I think other small business owners are usually happy to talk to people about their ideas and give them their at least their sage advice, like what helped them. It's not always applicable to everything, but I think, we learned a lot from Jim from the Jiffy Lube business. Like, he looked at our financial, like our projections, and he's like, that's very optimistic, isn't it? And you're like, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, that's, you think you're like, you unlock the door and open the door on the first day of business, and you're all of a sudden like, you're going to have those kind of numbers. It's all about, well, for us anyways, very gradual, like getting people that stumbled on us. We didn't have a marketing budget. We didn't advertise. We didn't, it was just sort of word of mouth and people walking by the shop with the door open and the smell would waft out, and they were
the best advertising.
It was our first shop was on Grand Avenue, where we still have a shop, and there's that Saturday's farmers market, and that was very popular. And there was so many people walking to and from the farmers market that became regulars, and they would come in every Saturday to have talk Spice,
Yes.
So,
and what you gonna do with those veggies? How you preparing those green beans?
Exactly. Yeah. People have recipes in mind that they literally had their groceries with them, coming to buy their spices.
Yes. And even in like the health and beauty space, I don't know if you all know if you have, if that's part of the profile of your customers. The rose water, I'd spray my face with that every morning. So
nice.
It's like I come in and I'm buying that. But if I wanted to take it downstairs in my kitchen and pour a drop in some cookie mix, I could. So, it is, you have things that I think serve a number of needs. You have spices, there are teas in shop, there are also small makers. So, this is the kind of shop and the kind of business that really relies on community engagement in order to be sustainable. And I love that y'all partner through the pop-up series with small local makers who can come in and sell their thing in the store. Talk a little bit about how that came up.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, now we have an events manager, Ray, who
Hey Ray,
coordinates all the pop-ups, and he's also our pantry manager. So he buys, he seeks out small makers and selects which products would work well in shop and in different shops locations that we have now too. So shout out to Ray for doing that all these days. And I think back in the day, it was really just it kind of happened organically, like a lot of things did. You can probably speak to it a little bit better, but I think maybe someone comes in who's like, I actually would really like to have a class on. I would really like to know how to make pickles. Or I would really like to know how to make jam. Have you ever considered, running a class? And we would say, well, no, how would we have time for that? Or who would do that? And then we would maybe meet somebody who does that. And then I say, hey, would you ever want to put on a class at Oaktown Spice Shop? And then, of course, we had to figure it all out. What do we charge? What do we do? How do we sell? What time? Who's going to stay open? There were a lot of things that had to be worked out. But that's kind of where it started, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a lot of local producers. There was chocolate. Someone who did chocolate and cocoa, and they would do like a drinking chocolate workshop and with spices. There was always usually a spice element. Mm-hmm. There was some of the first events we did were like Yelp. Yelp used to do these sort of like meetup things, and we did a mustard class, like make your own mustard. And
mustard. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. Sorry.
And then just meeting other small makers that would come and buy products from us, and we're like, oh, would you like to do a pop-up here? Or, just building those connections. And, we would, it was always fun, festive thing. Typically we do them on Saturdays or Sundays, and there'd be like the farmer's market going on and someone selling cookies out front. And
nice. I like a cookie with my farmer's market experience. So that's great. And even some of the fun ways, the additional fun ways you engage the community. So I know you are you are being interviewed right now for this podcast, but I don't know if you're aware that you have been a part of the As Told By podcast from the onset. Are you aware?
I didn't.
Season 1, when I had a big fat budget, it was in the beginning. I have not done another one of these since. But season 1, at the conclusion, I took all the people who I interviewed for that first season out to a big dinner.
Whoa.
And they all got a gift bag that had my favorite spice, hot smoky adobo. And they did custom labels for me with my podcast logo on the jar and a little like saying well wish for me. And it was Oaktown Spice.
Oh,
Love
well,
it.
thank
I
you.
knew you had a special order, but I didn't know the
Yes.
context of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, look, y'all have been in the As Told by podcast family from the start.
Oh, well, thank you
Thank
for
you.
including us.
Yeah,
We're happy to be part of the family.
Yes.
Let's cook and eat together.
I love it. Are there any plans for an outpost outside of California ever?
No, we haven't. I don't know. I haven't thought of it. We haven't talked about it.
We don't
ever.
plan that
We
far
haven't-
ahead. Yeah, no, I don't. We haven't thought about it, but never say never.
Right.
Where would that be? Nevada? Arizona?
You know, we have people listening from, different geographic regions. So if y'all cannot get here, first of all, I'm so sorry for you. But online, the online site has all the things you can get in the store. So don't be a stranger. Is there any exclusive info you can give me on an upcoming spice blend that we should look to see this fall? Y'all do really good reveals online where you show something and you cover up the label but you show some food items around and it's like, guess what blend is coming? Is there anything we should be looking out for in the holiday season?
Well, football season is coming or has started.
It started already?
I think so.
It started.
Okay. I don't watch, so I don't
about
know.
football, but that's a hint that there may be a spice related that's going to be really delicious for your football parties
Uh-oh.
coming.
I'm thinking
soon.
nachos, wings. I'm thinking dips.
You're on the
I'm
right
on the
track.
right track.
You're on the
Okay.
right track.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, y'all.
We'll get excited.
All right. Well, look, I'll wrap us up with some fun questions. One of these goes back to, remember I told you I was going to bookmark? I feel like I know the answer to this. I want it to be wrong. Can you keep spices for too long?
That is a good question. And yes,
Because I got
yes
things
and no.
on my shelf. I'm like,
yes
I'm not
and
getting
no.
rid of this.
It really, for the most part, it comes down to, does it still have a flavor, and is that flavor pleasant? So very few spices like go off or go rancid or go bad. So the first thing would be to like look at it. Does it resemble what it's supposed to? Like what if it's like, if it's fennel, is it still green? Or is it totally washed out? The next thing would be to like smell it, and then sometimes sometimes things don't have a very available smell, but you just take a little bit out and like rub it between your fingers or on your palm of your hand, and see if it releases some smell. And if it passes all those tests, then the next thing would be to put it in your mouth and taste it and say, does it have a flavor, and is the flavor pleasant, or is it like bitter or non-existent?
Okay.
So
I'm glad to hear that.
And then whole things last longer than ground things.
Yes.
And things kept in jars away from sunlight last longer than things that are in plastic, or near the stove, or if storage is going to be some element of how long things last.
Got it. I have my jars, but then I have some of the packets, and I will like refill the jars a little bit at a time, because and correct me if I'm wrong with what I'm about to say, I don't think you all deal in like those things they put in to keep it from clumping. The spices will, sometimes I'll have to beat the jar, but to me that's indicative of the freshness. It's like, this is not something that was designed to be sitting on a shelf forever and a day.
Right. Yeah. Things that are additive free generally will kind of clump, because like moisture in the air, or if you're pouring it out over like a steaming pot or something like that, and that moisture gets in there, or just ambient moisture from just your house or whatever, like can also cause things to kind of clump. And things that are finer powders clump more, like you think of like paprika or tomato powder is a bad one. And I just take a fork or something like that and stick that in there and kind of break it up, or just try to knock it against the counter to try to get it to come on back
Come on back.
to pour out of the jar, like.
Just try not to dump it all on your plate.
No.
Yeah, you got to be careful with the chili if it's a hot like chili powder or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Okay. All right. So for folks like me who's like, I ain't throwing out that cinnamon. Okay, you don't have to. Just keep testing it as you use it. All right. What's your best-selling spice blend?
Umami salt.
Oh, I have that one.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yes.
It's good in burgers. I like it in red
yeah.
meat particularly.
Yeah, it really amps up that kind of like flavor. I put it on my hard-boiled egg in the morning or my avocado. Really good. I've been putting it on everything lately.
it's not a strong flavor, but it's a great taste.
It's a depth.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Whose job is it to come up with the new combinations? Is that a whole job here?
It's I think it's a collective thing that it's a little bit of everybody's job.
Okay.
Yeah, well, people might come up with a concept. We come up with some sort of samples or some early prototypes of things. It's often tasted by many people at work, and then we refine it. But it's not a single person's job. I would say that there are like 3 or 4 of us that sort of like regularly work on the new blends.
Combo curation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's generally it's John and Andrew, who's our blend manager.
Blend manager.
He's a blend manager.
Okay.
Blend team manager. So we have a few different people that work on the blend team, and they do the grinding and the blending of the spices. And Andrew coordinates that. And he also contributes creatively to the process and to managing, as we give feedback, how to respond to that feedback by changing something here or there in the blend. So I think you two probably are the key players, and then a lot of the rest of us do a lot of tasting and talking, and naming is always a challenge.
Yeah.
Naming is it's a fun process.
And some of it is like customers are clamoring for X thing. So should we go ahead and do this? And how are we going to maybe put our unique spin on it or make it a little special?
Mm-hmm.
Other than it being made from really freshly ground, flavorful spices.
Other than that.
Yes. If you want extra special, I'll give you a fun name to go with it. This wasn't in my questions, but it came in my mind as we were walking around and doing the tour. How do you keep, like in the grinding process, because you don't have, of course, a grind for every spice. So how do you keep it from, I did cloves and now I'm doing garlic and now it's a garlicky clove. Like, how do you keep them from the essence of them from kind of bleeding over when you go in to do the next one?
Just from the equipment, you mean like the flavors? Yeah. Clean it out, or you do things in a certain order. So you can do things that are sort of analogous in a row. Like garlic would be like, you wouldn't want to do like garlic after cloves, or garlic, or vice versa, because you don't want your cloves tasting like garlic. But your cinnamon, you could do cinnamon before cloves, because cinnamon has a little bit of element of clove in it, so you're not sort of contaminating clove. The other thing is, cleaning out the equipment, and if need be, like would have to wash it and
take it down and bring it, back up. Right.
But yeah, I mean, generally like, I'm blending things that have garlic in it. So, we'll do just a series of garlic things after that, garlic and onion. Mm-hmm. Just like finding the things that are close together. That go together. That you wouldn't want to do like the Paloma sugar and then
cloves. That Paloma sugar is really good. I have that one too. How did you collect all the little vintage jars that are in the shops? I walk around and it's so fun because it's like a tour back through family members' kitchens. Did people come and just start donating those?
Pretty much. I think we probably started with like a half dozen of those. We bought at like antique market or something like that, and had a few. And people see those and they're like, oh, I just cleaned out, my grandma passed away, or my mom, I was helping her move, and she still had tins, and she was still using the spice from those, or there's always some funny stories that come with those, like I'm like, oh.
There's always spice in them.
There's often spice in them, and they're like 50 years old, and someone's like, I still have this. I don't know if I should replace it or not. I'm like, well, my advice to you is if you've had that for 50 years, you probably don't really use it. So
No, we just got it here for show and memory at this point.
It's sawdust.
Yes. And last question. What is one spice you both would recommend people buy, even though it's on the pricier side, because it adds so much dimension to food?
There's so many answers to that one, really. It's like, what do you want? What do you like to eat? Asafoetida.
Oh.
Oh, I don't even know what that is. What is that?
That is a powdered sort of tear from a fennel-like plant, or, like a related species to fennel. It's these dry little tears that are often compounded because the flavor is so concentrated. So it's found primarily in Indian cuisine, but you find in other cuisines, and it's an onion garlic flavor. And if you've ever had papadums,
I have not.
in an Indian restaurant, those like kind of crispy flat things that they often will serve before dinner. They have that onion garlic flavor. I'm trying to think what else.
What else asafoetida is in? It's in curries and.
Well, no, things that like I'm just trying to think of like what something that would be obvious. Like, oh yeah, I've had that.
Because sometimes the more, people go in and price a spice and something will be on the higher end and they'll go, oh, well, we'll skip it because you only need like a quarter teaspoon. It's like, no, if you skip that, you compromise the whole thing.
Vanilla.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get artificial vanilla. Get the real thing.
Oh, yeah. Even if you have to do paste. But just have it be real.
The artificial vanilla, if you think of a vanilla, like all the flavor compounds that make up what we consider vanilla flavor, it varies by the type of vanilla, like where it's from and how it's cured. And there's hundreds of them, right? And, if you smell vanilla, you only perceive a few of them at a time. But artificial vanilla is basically just saying like it's these two things, and that's they're disregarding the other 198 flavors that are present, so you're missing out on a ton of nuance and just getting just a very single notey kind of flavor. You
don't get any of the terroir of the vanilla's origin. Okay. Get your vanilla, and all your other spice needs. Y'all do such a good job of stocking all the kitchens, commercial and home alike in the Bay Area. So thanks for keeping us spicy.
Oh, thank you. Happy to keep you all spicy.
Yes.
Come by and visit. Yeah.
Tell people where they can find out more about Oaktown Spice Shop.
You can find out more about Oaktown Spice Shop at www.oaktownspiceshop.com.
All right. I will. And you're on Instagram too.
Oh yes, and we're on Instagram at Oaktown Spice.
Okay.
Oaktown Spice. Yeah, we have a ton of recipes online too. If you're like just looking for some inspiration, it's not all just products. You want to know how to use a certain spice. You could put it in our search window and see if we have a recipe that uses it.
Okay. Be empowered. Go to the website and be empowered. All right. I will be sure to include that with the show notes. If you all are looking to keep up with me in between episodes, you can find me at Hey K in the Bay on Instagram or at kayinthebay.com. That has been this week's episode of the As Told by podcast with the good folks at Oaktown Spice Shop, and we'll see you on the next episode.